Hello, everyone. I'm Bob Romano, the Director of Product Marketing for the SMB Mid-Market segment at Avaya. Thank you for joining us. Today, we have a great webinar for you, SMB Digital Transformation. With us today, we have Robin Gareiss, the President and Founder of Nemertes Research, and Mark Massingham from Avaya. Mark is the Product Marketing Lead for our IP Office offerings. They have some great information for you today, and I think you'll find it very informative. But before we begin, let me cover a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your audience console are multiple application widgets you can use. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can click on the Q&A widget at the bottom and submit your question. We will answer these questions during the Q&A session at the conclusion of the webcast. But if a fuller answer is needed or if we run out of time, we'll be happy to follow up with any of you specifically to ensure that we answer all your questions. In today's social world, we also encourage you to follow us on Twitter. Visit us at twitter.com/Avaya to stay up to date on all the latest webinars, events, and content. You can also tweet at us during the webcast using the handle @Avaya to share your thoughts on today's presentation or to ask questions. A copy of today's slide deck is available in the Resource List widget that looks like a little green folder at the bottom of your screen. You can extend your slide area by clicking on the maximum icon on the right top or the slide area by dragging the bottom right corner of the slide area, and that will expand the slide area. In a few days, you'll be receiving a link to view and share the on-demand version of the webcast. Thank you, and let's get started.
Well, great. Thank you, Bob. This is Robin Gareiss. I'm really happy to be here today talking about this topic because there's just so much happening right now in the area of digital transformation, and oftentimes as I'm talking to companies, people think, boy, digital transformation, this is really something that big, large enterprises are working on, but not at all. We see small, mid-sized businesses working on digital transformation projects just the same, and there's a lot of technology implications for those initiatives. So let's get started and talk about what we found in our research. Let me jump into just a quick about Nemertes. For those of you who don't know us, we are a research and strategic consulting company. We focus on analyzing the business impact of emerging technologies. So we don't cover every technology under the sun. We cover some of those that are listed there in the blue. And digital transformation and the technologies that support these initiatives, really a big area that we're looking at right now. So the research data that you're going to see here today comes from a combination of benchmarks, which are basically live discussions with IT leaders of all sizes of companies, and also we've augmented some of our digital research with some surveys as well, just to expand the pool of people that we see and pool of companies that are, we can kind of look at what they're doing. So, and of course we do a lot of vendor discussions, including those with Avaya, so I know a lot about what Avaya is doing in this space, and I think there's a lot of synergies around what we see SMBs looking for and doing today and what Avaya is offering, particularly in IP Office. All right, so let me just start kind of high level and look at what we see as some of the key business goals for SMBs. And a lot of times you can look at this and say, well, some of these business goals, or all of these business goals, in fact, are also business goals for larger companies as well. But there are some nuances here. So when you think about growing profits, SMBs, they generally don't have to worry about Wall Street, and they can make financial decisions really based on what's best for the company and what's going to make them grow profits versus what's going to increase their stock price or what Wall Street thinks. So they do have a little bit of a unique leverage there when it comes to their business goals. Now, technology in general, with all of these, is really crucial in achieving the goals, but it can really be a huge competitive differentiator. I look at it as a force multiplier to large companies who have a lot more money and more people. One of the big things technology can do for SMBs is help them serve their customers better. With really good contact center technology, with really good interactive, video streaming, things like that, you can really make a company feel much larger to its customers and give them sort of that security that they need, that, well, even though I'm dealing with a smaller company, boy, they've really got things together here. I know how to reach people. I can I can interact the way I want to interact. I can use my mobile device. And that's really important for a smaller or mid-sized business to compete with the larger companies. Bolstering employee productivity, I think, is extremely important and becoming more and more important as time goes on, because we really need to attract and retain some good employees, and these days there's a lot of competition to get the best and brightest. So one of the big ways to attract those people and also to keep them is to have good technology, have that good user experience as an employee. I've talked to many individuals over my years of doing research, and especially of late with some of the younger generation, where if they're really trying to determine two equal job offers, and one offers a really, awesome set of user technologies, that could be the thing that tips the scale in favor of that company. So, and once you're there, you want to be able to have these great technologies that are going to make you feel like you're productive, you're collaborating with the people that you want to collaborate with in the way you want to collaborate with them. So that's another thing that I think is going to increasingly get important, especially as we see more retirements happen and the workforce, getting much more competitive. So, really, you see also that, larger companies may be able to offer a lot more benefits or, other work-life, advantages. But I think SMBs can really hedge against that by providing things like, flexible work time. I mean, I work at a small company, and we do that, work at home environments, things like that, as long as they have the right collaborative tools to keep employees connected. If they don't have that kind of benefit is not going to be successful. So, given all these business goals and how technology plays a role, I think we're really seeing that SMBs are going to, vet the technologies that they select and the providers who they're going to work with a lot more rigorously in some cases than the larger companies, because they really cannot afford to make mistakes. So I think those are some of the key differences that we're seeing in the SMB space. And I wanted to ask Mark now, what are you seeing in the customers that you're dealing with at Avaya? I know you're doing a lot with the technology platform. You're doing, some pretty cool things there. So maybe you can comment on what are you seeing? Do you agree? Is this what you're seeing too?
Yeah, Robin, that's a great point, and I'm going to pick up on that last one you said, because I'm going to have to take a pat on the back, actually, because you talked about home working, and I've actually been working at home for the last 15 years. Sometimes it shows, and they do let me out now and again, but I think that is relevant for all types of business, and I think it is that differentiator. If you can offer that flexible work time, you do retain that talent. You have an expanded talent pool because, of course, you can employ from anywhere. In fact, one of our customers, very small company, it's a taxi firm up in New York, funnily enough, and one of their key staff was leaving, just a few hundred miles, but no way you can get to the office in New York, especially in a cab, of course. But they used IP Office tools to enable that person to work at home as though they were in the office. So we provide those tools, and it's choice, of course, Robin. But whether it's full-time, whether it's part-time, whether it's an emergency, I think that's another thing that SMBs can really utilize, these collaborative tools. Hurricanes. I live in Florida, good or bad, whether I hate them or love them, but we have hurricanes, and sometimes we don't get to the office. So we can employ this technology in the event of those emergencies. And it's available to everybody. I think you spoke earlier about enterprise. We reduce the complexity, and this is affordable for pretty much any size business. And the customer experience, that I believe is make or break for any business. I'm very passionate about customer service. It sounds like you are as well, Robin. So we're from the same shell. To provide that utmost level of customer service, I believe, is the biggest competitive differentiator that our businesses have. Whether you use email, web chat, voice, please respond to people. It really does make or break people. So, and being productive. You spoke about productivity. I think that's crucial. And we have the tools, the mobility tools, pretty much work from anywhere, anytime, any place. And unfortunately, Robin, you know as well as I do, 9 to 5 doesn't exist anymore.
Unfortunately, right?
we kind of pretty much need to be on call. And I've got a couple of examples down here about, I think small businesses, and I'm sure you'll agree, is they've got to see, what's in it for me? Why do I want to employ these tools, and where's the saving? And I think if we can show those savings, people are more adept to using technology if they see that return on investment. And we look at things like this. I've got a couple of examples down here. In the top example here, Agency Group, they have 2,000 artists. They're based in Canada, and they travel around the globe. This executive was in China for several weeks, and he saved $3,000 on toll charges alone by not using his cell phone. He basically used a mobility app that we have, and he used Wi-Fi. He saved $3,000 in one trip. So pretty tangible assets. The inbuilt conferencing, for example, on IP Office saved this one law firm in Australia $40,000 a year because they didn't need to go to an external party. And the last one here, I'm going to just quickly talk about this one. The auto industry. This is Voss Auto. They pretty much had a traditional phone system. They employed IP Office with voicemail to email, and the mobility solution. So their sales staff are outside in the car park. They can basically get the calls immediately. Mm-hmm. The bottom line is they increased their service appointments by 10 to 20%, which of course absolutely results in improved revenue. So overall, we can satisfy all of these requirements, and there are tangible benefits that we can show our customers on here.
And I think too that sometimes smaller businesses don't realize they can get these types of features and these types of savings. They think, oh, that's just for larger businesses, and they really do exist, and they really are affordable. So that's one of the things I find when I talk to SMBs. And then the other point, as you were talking, I was thinking of, is that when you look at the costs, I think there's two components to going into a new technology. The costs are going to appeal to, obviously, the people at the small business who are responsible for making ends meet and paying the bills. But the features and the functionality are what's going to attract the users to actually, adopt the technologies and embrace the technologies. Because sometimes, an end user at a company might not care as much about the cost. They just care about, hey, am I going to be more productive? So I think there's a couple different dimensions to look at here for small businesses.
Absolutely, and one of the things as well I think is crucial is that, look, you're talking about loyalty and retention and having that flexible workspace, but I think the other thing is also this BYOD that's happened over the last few years, where the younger generation, Robin, they want to take their iPads and their tablets and their smartphones into work and be able to use them, and of course we allow that. We can identify within our technology that, yes, it's an employee with their own device, so we'll give them this much permission. We have a visitor, we're going to give them that much permission. So, you're absolutely right. We have the enterprise solutions and feature set at an SMB price, and I think that's really important for our customers to be able to do that, and also to grow with them as well without any forklift upgrades.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I really couldn't agree more with that. I want to get into what we're seeing in the digital transformation initiatives at companies, because I referenced that earlier, and I'd like to, kind of talk a little bit about that. When you look at the percentage of companies that actually have a digital transformation initiative today on the pie chart on the left, you can see it's just under 70%, and that's all companies, all sizes. When you look at just the SMBs, it's right about the same. 67% of SMBs actually have digital transformation initiatives underway, even if they don't call it that. So we asked the question in a bunch of different ways, just to make sure, that if people define digital transformation differently, or if they didn't call it that, that we could capture who's actually doing this, and I'll explain what this is in just a moment. But I think the other key important point is in the little bar chart on the bottom, your overall IT success actually improves, and it's actually even more successful in the SMB than it is in other size companies. When you look at the little bar on the left, that's companies who actually have a digital transformation initiative. The one on the right are those who don't have a digital transformation initiative, and the number is the self-rated IT success. So we ask, okay, so how would you say businesses rate the success of IT on a 1 to 10 scale? And people rate that. And, a lot of times as we're talking to them, they say, oh, yeah, we do this ourselves. We do internal ratings. And so, you see a difference between 6.86 and 7.86. It's pretty substantial because, most people are somewhere in that middle area. So, digital transformation is actually happening in the SMB, and it's actually really correlating with success. So what actually is digital transformation? So at its real basic level, first of all, when you get into digital, by the way, you ask 10 people, what is digital transformation? You probably get 7 or 8 different answers, right? I don't know if you've experienced that too, Mark, but that's certainly what we do.
I absolutely have. And it's funny, it's like unified communications, isn't it?
Right.
Years ago, you'd get 10 different answers to that as well.
Yep, I used to say the same thing when I was out presenting it, so it does remind me of that. But just to kind of level set, what we look at is it starts with the innovative application of a particular technology. Now, it could be anything. It could be cloud or mobility or analytics. It could be collaboration, security. Could be something more innovative like IoT or, artificial intelligence, virtual reality. It could be anything. You're putting new technology or a new application of existing technology into something that's going to ultimately improve a process, a product, an experience, etc. I've got some examples in that green box there, but let's continue along the lines of the cars. A car basically tells you what's wrong and schedules your service call if you've got your computer in your car integrated in with your calendar. And basically you get in your car, I've scheduled an appointment for tomorrow at 10 a.m., and at some point, of course, the car is going to drive itself to the appointment. But still, you've got this application that starts turning that gear to improve a process and ultimately drive value. So that value could be improved customer experience, which would be, of course, the case with the example I just gave. It could reduce cost, which would be something like, if you're having sensors versus people, monitoring a remote oil rig, maybe a drone or something. Or even when you have employees using digital whiteboards and video conferencing to meet rather than hopping on a plane, you're going to reduce costs. And you're going to improve productivity, and of course your sales can improve with some of these digital transformation initiatives as well. So the key
Robin,
is, go ahead, Mark.
So I think that those points there are absolutely crucial, and I think that's what businesses need to see. They need to see that so what? And I think you've just nailed it right there on those 4 bullet points. What does digital transformation bring to me? And you just nailed it perfectly in those 4 bullets. I just wanted to sort of chime in. Sorry about that. But,
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I think the thing is, too, if any of these gears stop, the transformation stops. So if you don't see an improvement, or if you do see an improvement but you don't drive value, you've got to have each of those gears all working together. And the other important thing is that those, gold arrows are sort of trying to signal movement, but that movement has to keep going faster and faster. So I think one of the other things with digital transformation is competitively you want those transformations to happen more and more quickly as time goes on so that you can stay competitive. And I think that's more and more vital with small, mid-sized businesses than large businesses, because this is a competitive advantage. The small businesses don't have as much red tape. They don't have as much bureaucracy. They can go through and get something implemented and driving that value much more quickly than a large company, as long as they get out of their own way, right? So, I think that's something that an SMB should really embrace and say, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to set a really aggressive time frame and get it done, and they're going to beat their larger competitors and get a competitive advantage. So a little bit more on digital definition, I guess. When you look at a digital transformation, I think at the core, you're going to have a cultural change. So everyone needs to be aware of that. But there are things that happen starting at the top. You first have to build a business case. So why are you doing this? You have to really look at what's it going to do. Is it going to improve that customer experience or employee productivity? Are you going to be embedding something in a product or service that you sell, for example, or are you going to try and improve a process? What are you doing? And then how are you going to pay for it? So how much is it going to cost? Who pays for it? What's going to be covered there? And what people should be involved? So how many people, and we've benchmarked all this actually, but how many people from which areas? Who should be leading the initiative, and do you go and lean on your partners, your technology partners? And we do see that is a yes. We see companies, wanting their partners to help to provide some, materials to help explain the technology and so on. getting to the technology then, what do you have to think about there? Is it more foundational technology? So is your initiative going to, for example, require some additional security? Is it going to require more capacity in your WAN? Make sure the foundation is set up right in order to, achieve this goal. But then also look at other things. Okay, what kind of app dev are you going to have to do? Do you need to mobile enable the app, which is almost always yes these days? Is something happening that's much more innovative that you have to think about? And then, of course, you need to – go ahead, Mark. We're going to say something.
Robin, I was just going to ask, where you had the people, where do businesses really find this information out from? In your experience, where do they get the information from? Is it their peers, the web, or how trusted advisors? Where's your experience from?
Yeah, I mean, my own experience, selfishly, I guess, is like when we go out and do research on this, those are the kinds of questions that we're asking companies, and we say, okay, how many people do you have in this initiative? Where are they from? What are you spending? And we then just kind of crunch the numbers and do benchmarking. So I think analyst firms do this kind of stuff where you can go to them and and really get those data points. I think probably other ways that people try and figure this out. I mean, it's trial and error, I think, in some cases.
Yeah.
Hey, let's start here, and then they realize, partway through, we probably need a few more people from this business unit, or we're going to need a little more budget, or hey, we over budgeted, which doesn't happen very often.
Sure.
And then in some cases, I think it's just talking to their peers too.
Yeah, I think people just might find it a little bit daunting. Digital transformation. I've got to do, and it isn't. You can take. I think that the point is that you're making it. You can take this a step at a time. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. So, but it's happening. It's real. It's happening. You do need to get on board with it.
Yeah, and in some ways, you could look at this as what technology has always been meant to do, right? It's always been meant to sort of transform a company. I just think now, because of the pace of change, the pace of new technology innovation, and the more sort of formalization of digital transformation as an initiative, we're starting to see companies organize better around it. You know what I mean? They may use a DevOps methodology to make sure that they're getting things done the right way and efficiently. So I think, really you see people paying more attention to it. And I'll tell you one other thing that I really think is affecting this too, is we see more, more reliance on partners, whether it's a cloud-based service or a managed service or professional service. If you're using a third party to help you with that day-to-day break-fix monitoring management, you have more resources internally then to think about things like this and to actually manage a digital transformation, to really work with the business units rather than worrying about a server outage or something. You can be meeting with the business unit and trying to figure out, hey, how can this technology really help you guys sell more? So I think there's a lot of different changes that are really taking place now, and we definitely see that in the SMB because they're definitely relying more on their partners to help with that day to day.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, that's what we find. It's they're the trusted advisors I was hinting at. So yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, thanks for that, Robin.
Absolutely. Yep. And then just moving along with the analytics, another big component here, you have to be able to measure what you're doing. So whatever that transformation is, you need to measure, okay, here's the baseline, here's where we are today, here's what we're going to change, and then we're going to measure that, and then use that as guidance for additional change. And in fact, we might even use the data that we're gathering through our analytics tools to make money. Maybe like a tire manufacturer or something is going to put sensors in the tires to be able to sell the data on the tire utilization to a car rental company, for example, something like that. So we do see analytics being used in a lot of ways. And then finally, I call this marketing or user awareness and adoption. It's really making sure that once you have the technology in place, that your employees or your customers know it exists, they know how to use it, they know how to use it to make them, not only just what button to click where, but they know how to use it to make themselves more effective and efficient, and it drives business value then, getting back to that business value we were talking about. So this piece is actually becoming more and more important at all sizes of companies, just making sure that we're actually using the technology that we put out there. And it's a little bit easier to do in SMBs because, you have a smaller group to work with, and you really can make sure that, they're understanding and embracing the technology, and they start seeing the value very quickly. If you have a very large organization and only a small percentage of people are using the technology, you don't get the effect right away, So this is another area, just that user adoption and awareness, where I think that the SMBs can have a force multiplier.
Yeah, and Robin, I'd like to pick you up on that point because I think that's another crucial area, and it is that adoption. And so I said earlier, I'm a customer experience bigot. We all like that good customer experience. But I'm just going to talk about this one company based in the UK, no biased, okay, but these guys are based in the UK. They were a traditional customer, they supply blinds to the industry. Actually, they supply blinds direct to customers, which is kind of unusual nowadays. But they had their customers just calling in. It's kind of best luck. Okay, who's going to answer the phone and what happens? The traditional ring, 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 and ring, ring. You get the picture. These guys took a strategic leap forward in their mentality and approach to communications, to this digital transformation, and they employed Avaya systems. And not only did they just put a contact center in, that's a leap forward for these guys, but they added multi-channel. And by that, what we mean is a lot of businesses, a lot of their customers wanted to transact business via email, via web chat, via fax, those kind of other media not traditionally associated with a phone system. And of course, before that, they just didn't have it. So now they not only did the voice analytics, which you were talking about earlier on, about that measurement, that's so important. They employed email and web chat, and they measured those service level agreements on those as well. So the upshot is that their customers who would come in on a web chat would talk about, now I'm pretty useless at measuring things, and do you do the inside or the outside, the sort of stuff. Sure. So you go on the web chat and you go, okay, I need help doing this, I've got to have some funky window. And they can then, what they're doing, they're looking to see the presence and the status of their support staff. And they see, oh, Bob's available. Let me just put you through to Bob. And they escalated that web chat to a voice call to Bob. He gave the information and are able to close business now a lot quicker. So they've seen a big transformation in the way that they conduct business. In fact, about 50% of their business now is via email and web chat. And they integrate to CRM. And one of the crucial things about a good contact center is get me through to the right person the first time. Don't transfer me, and particularly don't transfer the information around, and ask me again who I am and all that kind of stuff. So these guys actually integrated to their CRM solution. I think it's salesforce.com. And by that integration, they can route that caller to the same agent that they spoke to last week. So they're able to offer that just next level of customer service that really, back to one of the original slides, I think is that competitive differentiator that these guys are looking for. So they've taken that big leap of faith from just a traditional phone system to a multi-channel, skills-based routing, integration to CRM, using status, using instant messaging, and looking at the reports to improve that level of customer experience. And now they're manufacturing about 30,000 blinds a week, which is really quite phenomenal. So a great story about how they really adopted this digital transformation to really help their customer experience.
Yeah, and I love stories like this where they're not just making an improvement, they're totally leapfrogging, competition. They're really taking a huge step, and you can really see the improvements. And hey, if you're going to make a change, you might as well make a big change, right? So that is that's
Absolutely.
a great story, and it sets me up well for what I want to talk next, which is what's really happening today. So we talk about digital transformation, and I'd like to try and get a little bit more crystallized as to what companies are doing. So this chart, although it doesn't say it on the top, is actually about SMBs. So it's specifically what are the SMBs doing. And when we look at the different options, the first one, the most common that we see, is they're replacing paper processes with digital ones. That's a more traditional definition of digital transformation. Right after that, the next most common is that they're improving customer experience through the use of technology, and I want to talk a little bit more about that in a minute because that's a big theme in all of our research. This whole customer experience really came through. They're also doing some things internally, like they're identifying workflows that they want to digitize and then analyzing, using the analytics again, that resulting data to improve business one way or another. And then about 36% again, a more traditional definition of digital. They're embedding technology into products and services they sell. So this is where you get more into like little sensors and chips and things like that into products. Like some of the smaller healthcare product and supply companies trying to embed technology into products that they sell so that they can remotely monitor things like that. And then finally 31%, which is all these still pretty decent percentage, are actually leveraging emerging technology. So things like DevOps to become lean and agile and responsive. And again, there's that customer-centric. So when we look further at the customer experience, it's really a major influencer when we look at the digital transformation trends with SMBs. So first of all, 46% of SMBs are saying that they are improving customer experience through the use of technology, as I mentioned, and that is the second top digital transformation application for them. As I mentioned before, the first one is just replacing paper processes with digital ones. When we ask what's driving their digital initiative, 43% cite improving customer experience as their top digital driver. So there's a bunch of other drivers, but the top one is to improve customer experience. Now, when we ask companies about plans moving forward with their staffing and budgets and things like that, we asked about staff growth and what areas within IT are they increasing their staff. And the top area for SMBs is, in fact, customer experience. So 32% of companies say that they're going to increase their IT staff that's responsible for customer experience by 2018. And they're increasing those people by 14%, and that is also the top percentage increase of all areas where they're going to be increasing IT staff. So I think there's a real common thread here throughout our research that's showing that customer experience is really a major influencer to what people are doing in their digital transformation initiatives.
So by 2018, Robin, we'll have the perfect customer experience everywhere we call.
Let's hope so, right? Wouldn't that be nice?
But it
is. At least with
SMBs. This is Bob Romano. Let me just chime in here for a minute because I just couldn't agree more. And I got to tell you that, as we talk to customers, what we see a lot is that they underestimate the value of customer experience. Everything that you guys have been talking about is so very true. And, happy customers are retained longer. They reference more to other people. They buy more products. The problem is they overestimate the cost and complexity of contact center capabilities. And I think that's a big mistake because there are some very good solutions that are very affordable, easy to deploy, and the value of them is extremely demonstrable. So I just have to jump in there and agree.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. And I think that there's a stat there, isn't there? Full of stats, but isn't it 10 times more? It's 10 times more difficult to attract a new customer than to retain an existing one, or words to that effect. And that's so very true. And again, customer experience is a pet love of mine, and we want to be able to give every size business the same tools as though they were in the enterprise grade. And Bob, you raised a great point. Underestimated the value, overestimated the cost. Well, I don't think you can put a cost on customer experience. It's your lifeblood. It's the way that our customers differentiate themselves. So, we can provide the tools, whether it's you go all out like Hillary's blinds, or you want to do it softly, and to take a slower approach, whether you want to employ the omni-channel customer experience. This is the ability for agents or IT staff, as Robin was just talking about, to be able to deal with voice calls, to deal with web chat, to deal with emails. It makes them so much more productive. And they're measured on it as well. So you get the reports to make sure that everybody's doing their job. And again, one of the key areas of a successful customer experience is get me to the right agent the first time. Please don't transfer me. Please don't ask me for all my information once again. It really is quite annoying. So we employ what we call in the industry skills-based routing. So whether it's on language, whether it's on a specific product skill set, we can do that. And then we can escalate that call. So I'm going to use you, Robin. You instant chat me and can I have a look at this product and I need some information on it. I can very quickly say, well, do you want to have a talk about it? And I can call Robin back, or I can just escalate that to a voice call, which is really, that adding that great customer experience. And a couple of bullets here, the geo-presence. This is, Big Brother, unfortunately, but this is a great example of using customer iPhones, Androids, the GPS system, that if you were to employ that scenario, and we actually have got a company called Carlos Bakery. I think you're all everybody should know them out there, the cake boss. Oh, yeah, exactly. And try their cannolis, Robin. They're brilliant, and so they really are very good. But they use geopresence to track their drivers, so they have an IP office system, and they know where their drivers are to stop spoilage, to make sure people arrive on time. That's the bakery industry. You can apply that to a service industry, plumbing. So I call in and I've got a problem. I need a hot water tank fixed pretty rapidly. Where is the nearest plumber? And that business can look, find out where they are, send them a text message, and so on. And I could even escalate that to a video call as well. So there's many different scenarios about in a real world situation. You can go from a web chat to a voice call to a conference to where is the nearest plumber to let's go to video to see that broken water tank to make sure it is that, all in one call. And so we've done that. We've completed that transaction in one call. Great benefits by using this technology to really drive home that good customer experience and with a perfect outcome.
Yep. No, couldn't agree more. I think it's also important to look at the technologies themselves. So, we realize the customer experience is certainly important, but what's really backing that? What's behind, the customer experience? So we asked a lot of questions in this research about technologies and what companies were using. The one you're looking at now is the question was, which technology is most vital to your digital transformation initiative? And we only let them pick one. There was a long list of technologies, and you can see which ones sort of rose to the top here. Security and network infrastructure, again, kind of getting to that foundational technology, making sure the foundation is strong and is going to handle whatever you're going to throw at it, right? But then unified communications and collaboration, and that's actually higher ranked among SMBs than it is with larger companies. So UCC is definitely a big area among SMBs, followed by then data analytics, big data rather, and analytics, and just regular applications, of course. And then we get to some of the more innovative mobile enablement and IoT. But I think first you have to get these pieces together to support all of that. And so I mentioned that unified communications and collaboration is highly important. It's a very big area for SMBs. And we have another data point that also supports that. So what this looks at is the percentage of successful companies that are spending more on these technologies than unsuccessful companies. So we basically took our data set and we applied a bunch of different analytics and criteria to it and came out with a group of successful companies, and it was about 23% of the whole group. And we wanted to see what was the success group that was doing all the things right? Where were they spending money more than the unsuccessful group? And you can see that unified communications and collaboration is actually the biggest area of differentiation between successful and unsuccessful companies. And then you kind of go down from there. You also see customer experience, fourth from the last one, but still about 21% more. Successful companies are spending more on contact center 21% more of the time than unsuccessful companies is kind of how to look at that. So I think the key here is that, again, like I said, we're still looking at a lot of the foundational technologies. If you look at the ones that are sort of top in that blue box, to prepare ourselves for getting to things like IoT and wearables and even some of the collaborative applications. When you get to video conferencing, you want to make sure you have a good foundational, network infrastructure to support that so the video works well and the customer is happy with that, kind of getting back to that customer experience. One other nuance when we looked at SMBs, which isn't too surprising here, and I kind of alluded to this before, is that the SMBs really do favor cloud more so than larger companies. So if you look at sort of these cloud budgets, the cloud IT budgets by the size of company, the blue bar are companies with fewer than 500 employees. The gold bar, you can argue that some mid-sized companies here are 500 to 2,500 employees, and then the green one's the larger companies. So you can see that when you look at the blue and gold bars, those are the highest. Those are the ones that are really, looking more toward the cloud. So what that tells me is that they're definitely relying more on their partners. They're relying more on their partners to, help them with their technology strategy, to help them run the day-to-day, to make sure that the technology is running so that they can do all this cool stuff with digital transformation. So, in fact, when you look at hiring strategies today, we ask the question as to, are you hiring more, are you more apt to hire technology experts with some business experience or business experts with some technology experience? And you can see that, most companies are still hiring, 70% are still hiring those technology experts with business experience. But when I segment out the SMBs, that 29.9% in the gold grows to 37%. So again, what that's telling me is that the SMBs are relying more on their partners to help them, and they're shifting their focus already to hiring business experts with some technology experience within IT to help drive those digital initiatives. They want people who understand the technology, of course, but not as their first discipline. Their first discipline is understanding the business and really connecting those dots. And I'm sure you're seeing that too, Mark. I can't imagine you're not.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I want to just go back to your slide about most vital technologies. Interesting that application security, networking, infrastructure, UCC, they all came up tops. And the good news is that with the Avaya systems, you're able to provide that full range of solutions from a single vendor. From a single partner. So when our customers deal with a partner, they're dealing with Avaya, and we have the IP Office platform, which provides that whole sort of customer engagement, customer experience, the team engagement, i.e. unified communications, aka telephony, the full raft of mobility solutions that we've been talking about that I think are so vital in today's business, whether you're just even nipping out to the shops or if you're going out to China, for example, and providing that security. Obviously, that's vital. That's absolutely needed for SMBs and also enterprise as well. And we can provide the infrastructure, that whole networking infrastructure. And we kind of phrase it Avaya like better together. So everything can run on Avaya networking, the Avaya UC, the Avaya IP Office, and you're able to provide all of this to your customers and scale as well. I think IP Office is one of those very easily rolled out, very easily scaled, and very easily managed. And it's perfectly at home. And you mentioned cloud there. Interesting stats, actually, Robin. And prime for that is, we're able to provide IP Office on-premise, where we have done for many years. We can provide it in the cloud, 100% in the cloud. All of your apps, all of your telephony is just hosted in the cloud. Or we can uniquely provide it in a hybrid environment. That means that you could actually have all the telephones and the call control on site, and then have the applications in the cloud, and we can do failover scenarios and all that sort of stuff. So a unique deployment with IP Office and something that we're taking forward for the next millennial.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you, Robin, and thank you, Mark. That was great information. I think that this, is really good stuff. The vast majority of companies in this country and around the world are actually SMB businesses, and there's a huge opportunity to be able to take advantage of great technology to improve your business, your customer experience, and your bottom line. So this was some great information. We'll move now to the Q&A session, and I encourage all of you to click the Q&A widget on the bottom and submit your question if you haven't done so already, and we'll go into the section where we'll answer those. And again, if a fuller answer is needed and we run out of time on this, we'll follow up with you, specifically to ensure we answer all the questions that we get. Thank you. All right. Well, we did get some questions in the chat, and we'll go through those. And again, I encourage you that if you have any questions or if this prompts any questions from you, just type them into the Q&A button. Click the Q&A button at the bottom and type them in there. There are some interesting questions here. One is, you talked a lot about customer experience. How large does a business need to be to start requiring a contact center? So, Mark or Robin, maybe you guys can answer that one.
Yep, sure. I can jump in, sort of from a high-level perspective and looking at it from a research perspective, and maybe Mark can address it more from, an actual Avaya product perspective. But in my opinion, you really don't need to be any size of a company per se to have a contact center. I mean, I think a lot of people look at contact centers as these big, cubicles, spaces where there's tons of agents sitting there with headsets on, and it's real loud, and everyone's, taking calls. And sure, that is an example of a contact center for a large company, but, frankly, you could be a small company and have one or two people answering phones, and from a customer standpoint, that is their contact center to you. So as a smaller company, I would not underestimate the power of technology and changing the customer experience or improving the customer experience. I think that by using and leveraging a lot of the new innovative technologies, the new ways that you can communicate with your customers, it really makes smaller companies appear bigger, appear smarter. It's one of the great benefits of technology that I think smaller companies should be looking at. So as far as size, I wouldn't get hung up on that. If you're a smaller company and you don't really have a set space that's a contact center, but you have people answering their phones, heck, if you even have people answering phones on their mobile devices because you get calls forwarded, you want to be able to have all the features and functionality that a larger contact center would have. And fortunately nowadays that those capabilities are available. And I guess that's probably something you can address, Mark, as to what smaller companies can do with the Avaya.
Yeah, absolutely, Robin. I must say, you heard me in there. I'm a big proponent of contact centers and customer experience. I think small businesses are much more nimble to actually employ and adopt contact centers. And as you said, I think the technology could be simple as a web chat to voice, and I think measuring incoming calls is important, and all of you what you'd expect from a contact center, but also not forgetting that integrating to Outlook, integrating to Salesforce.com, using the outbound capabilities to make outbound calls to remind yourself that the warranty is due. So when your business revolves around driving as much revenue from the customers that you have, we can literally start off very small, and we can deploy either from the cloud, and you do it on a monthly basis, so or you do it on premise. I think small businesses tend to see contact centers as big dollars. It's like a big outlay of money, and I can't really afford it. Well, you can do it very slowly, or you can do it from the cloud on a monthly OPEX basis, or of course you can do it through a CAPEX. But no, the question answered very simply is any size business will benefit from good customer service through a good customer solution.
Okay, great. Thanks, you guys. Here's another interesting question. You talked a lot about mobile employees, and I'm finding that my employees are increasingly mobile. You gave some examples, but specifically, how can Avaya help me there?
There are several ways we can do that. We can be very simple with the IP Office solution on site. We can do very simple things like twinning. So if you have an incoming phone call, it can simply be twinned to your cell phone or even your home phone. It's a very simplistic view, but it does enable you to, untether the chains from the office. Or the other way is we have applications that you can download to your smartphones, Androids or iPhones, and that is gives you a lot more connectivity to the office, so you can see the status of Bob Romano, who's actually on a meeting at the moment doing a webinar, so I won't disturb you, or I can send you an IM. And so you can go from really very simple solutions that are pretty much included with IP Office, and then you can go to full-blown applications that on smartphones, and going as far as using voice over Wi-Fi. So if you're in a Starbucks, you're in the office, you're in an airport, you're in Japan, you can basically don't use cell phone minutes because they're expensive. So let's use the technology that we have today. So that's how we can help you out there with a number of mobility solutions.
Okay, excellent. And then there's a question about deploying, services on the Avaya Foundation. I mean, can I start small and start to add things? Certainly we need a good telephony solution, but can I, add different capabilities as my business needs grow?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that small businesses obviously budget in mind. So you just buy what you need. And I think that's the flavor, that's the order of the day. So with IP Office, whether it's on premise, whether it's in the cloud, or whether you want to do a hybrid, a mixture of both, you basically buy what you want. And then you can grow and add capability as you see fit. You can add capacity, and it's the same platform. It's the same software. It's the same hardware. We simply just grow with you. Whether it's using sophisticated technology like this customer experience solutions, or adding phones, or adding locations, it is very simple and straightforward. There's no throwaway policy with Avaya. There's no forklift upgrade, as we say in the industry. It really is, we'll grow with you. On the IP Office platform, up to 3,000 users and 150 locations, but you can start as little as 5 users and a very small single location. And then we can add that with you. We can do the networking side of it. We have the services, the contact center, mobility, UC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's all from one vendor. It's all one back to pat, as they say, or one throat to choke, depending how you look at it. So it's very easy to grow with the Avaya solutions.
Okay, thanks, Mark. And another question is, if we want info or pricing on IP Office Cloud solution, but currently have it on-premise through an Avaya partner, do we go through that partner or have to go straight to Avaya? And so that's a great question, and it really brings up an interesting discussion about IP Office and one of the huge benefits of it as it's delivered from the cloud. The way that Avaya does that is it enables that through our partners. So the first step will be to go to your partner and ask them about cloud delivery. They may be a partner that has it stood up and is offering it from them as a cloud service, or they'll have access to one of our other Avaya partners that can do that. The advantage of that is very interesting because many customers don't want to go to the cloud 100%. They want to migrate to the cloud. So they may have a new branch office, or they may want to add something like contact center and do that from the cloud and get the economic benefits of a cloud-delivered capability. The beauty of IP Office is the code base is exactly the same in a premise deployment as it is in a cloud deployment. So to your users, it'll look exactly the same. It's the same user interface. It's the same basic functionality, and they integrate. The dial plan is the same, so there's a lot of benefits to be able to migrate to the cloud using IP Office because of that common code base. We have another question, Mark. I'll let you answer this one. What are the main new features of IP Office 10? And for the benefit of the group, we just launched IP Office 10, the latest release of IP Office.
Yeah, a lot of it is to do with the cloud infrastructure, actually, Bob. So what we're enabling to do is to have a resilient architecture, have security that's always built in. So as the industry transitions to more of cloud deployment options, Release 10 is primarily going to be driving that, but with the added bonus of we want security, and when you're putting voice over the internet, you still want to secure that. So we have the built-in security. We've got resilient architecture, which is actually quite unique. So cloud to cloud, yeah, that is table stakes. Premise to premise, yeah, we've got that obviously, but we've got the added benefit with Release 10 of doing a premise to cloud and a cloud-to-premise failover. So you can have all your phones and your hardware on site, but your actually technology and driving technology is in the cloud. And if the cloud fails for some reason, it can go back to the premise and vice versa. So we've added some of that. And there's also a lot around the end-user UC application. So things like web collaboration. We've employed the enterprise enterprise-grade web collaboration is now in Release 10, and some of the applications get a makeover, like Soft Console gets a makeover, and some of the UC applications like Avaya Communicator for Web, which is a headless client, and images I know are all a bit weird and wonderful, but we have this new headless client and Avaya Communicator for Web that gets things like a single sign-on. And I'm going from memory here, Bob. I think I'm doing pretty well. So you need to certainly look at on the Avaya.com website. You'll get a lot more information about Release 10.
Okay, that's great. There is some specific questions about IP Office 10 and some of the soft phone capabilities. One is the soft phone updated or capabilities of soft phone in IP Office 10, and I think another one related to that is about IP Office 1X deployment, the basic design of an IP Office 1X deployment. And 1X is one of the soft clients that we use. So, Mark, maybe just, and that may require even a follow-on to, get more specific about it, but maybe just a quick overview of that.
We can do that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, very briefly, it's just for a 1X deployment, it's web services on the same, you can put it on the same server as IP Office. Softphone itself, we're leaning towards the Avaya Communicator for Web application that has softphone capability and also video capability as well. And that is really our client that we're probably going to be gearing a lot towards. So, and that integrates to Salesforce.com, Google Services, Office 365. So you can actually you don't actually have to have the client on show all the time. You actually do all your work from within those clients. So the soft phone gets updated because of the very nature we've introduced this Avaya Communicator for Web. We still have the Avaya Communicator solution as well, and that gets some updates. But that's probably where we're going to be aiming towards. James, I think James is answering that. So, look, guys, if you need any follow-up, certainly take my email address. I have no problem giving it out. It's Massingham, 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 exactly how it sounds, at Avaya.com if you need any specifics around that.
Okay, well, that's great. So listen, we're coming up to the top of the hour now, and, I really appreciate everybody attending this. Robin and Mark, thank you very much for some very, very good information. I think it's fascinating how the world is changing, and really mostly about the capabilities that small businesses have now to be able to cast a much bigger shadow than perhaps the size of their business would warrant. They can put a presence and take care of customers in a way that, was only possible by for very large customers investing a lot in technology. So a lot of the stuff that we've done with the Avaya solutions to enable that, we're very proud of. As I say, we just released the latest version of IP Office 10, which includes, all the way from basic telephony to, full UC, CC capability and workforce automation that will take and really understand how your contact center is working well. So a complete suite of applications to enable you to do that. And you can use it and grow as you need it, and you can consume it on the premise or from the cloud or a combination of both. So anyway, thank you all very, very much for attending. Robin and Mark, thanks again. And, with that, we'll say goodbye. Thanks, everyone.